Good morning, all. Welcome to today's lecture, second lecture of disaster management. So, in previous session at 10 a.m., we have discussed about the risk mitigation factors related to various kinds of disaster, and then we have gone through the response and the key elements to related to various disaster response. Then we have gone to rescue towards various disasters, technological, maritime, aviations, public health emergency. And then we have started some of the things about the psychological response to various kinds of disaster. See, after being traumatized with disaster, one of the major concern is about the psychological response of an individual or a community towards the disaster will come as one of the major factors. So, psychological response in the context of disasters or traumatic events refers to the emotional, mental, and behavioral reactions of individuals and community experience in the aftermath of such events. So, these responses can vary widely from person to person as depending on their mental strength and have significant short-term and long-term effects over individuals. So effective psychological response and support are crucial for helping individuals and communities cope up and recover from that disaster or the situation they have gone through. So here I am going to discuss some of the key aspects of psychological response or how a psychological response can help or psychological remedies can help to cope with the effect of such kind of disasters for the community and the individuals. So first thing, that is psychological first aid, that is PFA, is an approach used by mental health professionals and the first responders to provide immediate support and comfort to individuals affected by the disasters. It involves active listening, offering reassurance, and helping individuals to meet their basic needs. Whenever we approach to any kind of disaster victim, it becomes more helpful rather than giving them instructions to listen to them. Listening to them will able to make them talk about what kind of disaster or what kind of problems they have gone through in that disaster will not only help in reducing their mental stress, but it can also help in future for the kind of preparedness that an administration should have to cope with such kind of disasters. So that is one of the major things that one should keep in mind, that not only giving them the instructions, but also listening to them will help on a greater extent to overcome their pain or to overcome their mental trauma. Crisis counseling. The trained mental health professionals provide crisis counseling to individuals who may be experiencing acute stress, anxiety, or other emotional distress in the immediate aftermath of a disasters. So these professionals can help individuals cope with their emotions and reactions. So generally, mental professionals or mental health professionals are doing counseling to the person or to the community or to a particular individual to come out of that trauma or mental stress that could cause anxiety and stress into the people's mind. So this crisis counseling after PFA, that is psychological first aid, will be a key tool or a key aspect in any kind of psychological response that a person requires. See, after any disaster or any trauma, every individual seek for a counseling or for a listening, or where do they go and tell people how they face or what kind of impact that particular trauma or that particular disaster has put in their mind, and what could be better done in future to eliminate such disasters. Another thing that comes into the picture, that is about education and the information. So providing accurate information about the disaster, the recovery process, and available resource can help reduce uncertainty and anxiety. It's important to correct misinformation and rumors. See, generally, with the help of the victims, we can circulate the correct information to the community regarding the disaster and the causes and the problem and the causes of the disaster. Sometimes what will happen, that disaster might be not or might not be done by any individual or any community. It is naturally occurred disaster, or maybe sometimes it is due to a particular misjudgment of an individual. So that will clear the picture about the information spreading in the community. So that would also help administration to cope up with the problem arising with misinformation and rumors spreading around the community. So that is also one of the things that one should have to keep in mind. Next thing that is coming out as emotional expression. Emotional expression is related to encouraging individuals to express their emotions and talk about their experiences can be a therapeutic. This can be done through group discussions while during therapies or their therapy sessions. So that would also help. Coping skills, so teaching individuals coping strategies and self-help techniques for managing stress, anxiety, and trauma can empower them to take control of their emotional well-being. Mental health services, access to professional mental health services and support for those experiencing severe distress, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, or other mental health condition is crucial. For a longer term recovery. Children and vulnerable populations. Special attention should be given to the psychological needs of children and elderly because they are the most vulnerable population towards any disaster. Okay, so that one should keep in mind also. that these are the vulnerable populations which would, or the impact of disaster could be more dangerous on the mental health of elderly people and children. So they should be they should, or they must be given special attention to overcome the psychological effect of any disaster. Okay, so please note down these points, and if you have anything to discuss, please discuss over here, or else I will go ahead. Please note it down quickly. Relief and recovery. So, what are the various kinds of strategy that could help in identifying the relief and recovery for a particular kind of disaster? So, relief and recovery aftermath efforts of various types of disasters aim to provide immediate assistance and restore basic needs of it, or basic services, and support the long-term rebuilding and affect to the affected communities. So, whenever the specific approach for any kind of disaster also varies. Okay. On the nature of the disaster. So here are some of the key considerations for relief and recovery for different types of disasters. Natural disasters, in that if earthquake is there, then relief is in terms of search and rescue, a medical care to the rescued persons, and provision of emergency shelter, food and water till the rebuilding of the area as done. Recovery, how we can recover by rebuilding infrastructures, addressing structural damage to the important structures like bridge, dams, buildings of importance, and strengthening building codes so that in future, after studying the problem related to earthquake and structural health of building, we can establish or we can add something in a building code or construction code so that we can have proper buildings in future to counteract the problem associated. Floods, relief, that is relief work regarding flood is about evacuation, providing emergency centers, flood barrier constructions, and distribution of clean water and food to the uh, to the victims. Recovery is for repairing drainage system, housing reconstruction, and flood risk reduction measures. So kindly take note of this quickly. Hurricanes and typhoons, in that similar kind of reliefs can be, or relief actions can be done. That is about evacuation, research, search and rescue. Sorry, not search, not research, search and rescue. Immediate medical care to the affected person. Recovery by rebuilding damaged homes and infrastructure and implementing stronger building codes so that in future we can eliminate the effect of such kind of disaster. Wildfires, relief, evacuation, and shelter. And medical care for burns and smoke inhalation. Recovery is about reforestation and rehabilitation of ecosystems and disaster resistant landscape planning so that in future, if such kind of disaster takes place, there will be a minimal damage to a particular area. Technological and industrial disasters, that is chemical accidents, evacuation and medical care for the chemical exposure, and containment for, or the containment of hazardous material. Recovery, that is environmental cleanup, so that there will be no side effects of the chemical. And re- health monitoring of the survivors and the public health education. Industrial accidents, relief activities in terms of evacuation and immediate medical care. And recovery can be done in terms of, not only in terms of industrial accidents, but only with the chemical accidents also. That safety improvements in future will help negotiating such kind of chemical and industrial accidents, and strict regulations to be followed, and compensation for affected individuals for their medical care by the company itself. So any questions up till here? Okay. Maritime and aviation disasters, shipwrecks, as we have discussed, maritime search and rescue, medical care and evacuation, recovery, that is salvage operations, environmental cleanup and safety improvements so that in future we can eliminate such disasters. Air crashes, relief work is carried out in terms of SAR, that is search and rescue, medical care to the survivors and the debris removal, recovery by investigation, investigating the fault that causes the disaster, support for the victim families, and air safety improvements. So that is the one of the major thing. Public health emergencies like in pandemics, relief by providing medical care, quarantine measures, and public health communication. That what we have gone through in 2020 during corona pandemic. Recovery by vaccination campaign, healthcare system strengthening, and pandemic preparedness planning. We know that during this corona pandemic, after that, during that, we were taking extreme medical care, quarantine measures for the affected ones, and the public health guidelines were issued continuously by the administrations of various states and countries. Recovery in terms of vaccination campus campaigning that has taken place is everywhere throughout the world. Healthcare system strengthening, as we know that major drawback during the pandemic was not having a proper storage or not having a proper facility to have oxygen supply or oxygen cylinders in the hospitals itself. So that was strengthened after as a recovery part when the this type of pandemic hits, and it will also help in pandemic preparedness planning. If such kind of disaster occurs again, then we can have the idea about it. Building collapses in urban disaster relief by SAR, that is search and rescue for the survivors and medical care for them. Recovery, building expense, building inspection, identifying scientific or engineering cause of the building collapse, and enforcement or reinforcement or reinstating codes and construction method and construction standards to particular area or for a particular community. So please note down these points. If you have any question, can ask. Yes, anything else? Anything more to discuss over here? There is one instructions. Those who have not given the exam, please do appear in exam. Still the link is on. It was shared on your email ID. Those who have not completed it, please completed it. Some of the names are those who have not given the exam. are Adnan Garaya, Mihir Matia, Mustafa Aziz Wakharia, Malay Wachani, Fardeen Siddi, Viram Mundawa. So these are the students. If you know anyone personally, then please make them aware about the exam and ask them to complete the task. Okay, anything that you want to discuss on this? Okay. So now here I'm going to start with a new module. That is your third module. That is about disaster management in India. Okay. So I hope the screen is visible to all. Your third module, it was the end of the second module with relief and recovery towards various kinds of disaster. It was the last topic. So today I am going to start about disaster management in India, your third module. So disaster management policy for India is disaster management involves a multi-level approach encompassing policies at various government levels, environmental considerations, and local actions by community and individuals. So here is an overview of how these elements interact. So it's not a single level approach, but it is a multi-level approach by considering policies, government policies, environmental considerations, and local actions. So when we talk about the disaster management policy, it will be divided or broadly classified under three categories: national policy, regional and local policy, and international cooperation. National governments typically formulate overarching disaster management policies and plan that set the framework for disaster preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. So this policy often establish agencies and authorities responsible for disaster management at national level. So basically the role of national policy is to prepare a framework for a disaster regarding disaster, the preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. While these policies, if we implement these policies, that one should, so that one can establish agencies and authorities which are responsible for the disaster management at national level. So regional and local policies are associated to the country structure, regional or local governments, and may also have their disaster management policy tailored to their unique risks and resources. What kind of risk that they are having in their region, particularly in their region, and the resource that they are having are enough or not, or adequate or not, that can be decided over here. And if any more resource allocation is required, that they can demand from the central government, as state government are not having the ample amount of resources that they can demand it from the central government. International cooperation, the disaster management policies often include elements of international cooperations, particularly in regions prone to transboundary disasters. Countries may collaborate on disaster preparedness, response, and recovery efforts, like tsunami, earthquake, which are beyond the boundaries of a country. So that can, so the international cooperation can help understanding the scenario of disaster and the disaster preparedness and recovery and response. Policy environment legislation, that is at the national and local levels, for establishes the legal framework for disaster management. These may include laws related to land use planning, building codes, environmental protection, and public safety. Regulations to specific guidelines for implementing disaster management policies, for example, reinstating building codes, providing amendments in the existing building codes, which may specify construction standards to enhance structural resilience. See, every kind of disaster from the very starting, we are talking that there will be a loss of life and loss of infrastructure also. Now, in majority of cases, expect earthquake. In majority kind of disaster, we have or we are having early warning systems. So we can help people or we can save life of people more nowadays than the earlier times. So now the picture is about how to save the infrastructure or how to have a minimal damage on the infrastructure point of view. So that could be done with the help of continuous research and monitoring and providing legislation or providing law or the regulations on the construction standards of infrastructure, so that we can have a proper infrastructure that could be damaged minimum during a certain kind of disasters. Funding and resources, that policy environments allocate financial resources for disaster management, enabling and establishing establishments of agencies, training of personnel, procurement of equipment and supplies, environmental consideration, land use planning, proper land use planning and zoning. Policies play a significant role in reducing disaster risks. This includes avoiding construction in flood-prone areas, maintaining buffer zones, earthquake-prone regions, protecting wetlands and mangroves for flood and tsunami mitigation, that we already have discussed. These are the environmental considerations. The legislation, regulation, funding responses are the policy environment. Ecological resilience, that is the preservation and restoration of ecosystems such as forests and wetlands, can help reduce the impact of natural disasters, including wildfires and floods. Healthy ecosystem act as a natural buffers against this kind of hazards. So if you have any query up till now, can discuss over here. So these all are interactive, or these all are interconnecting dots, that environmental consideration, policy environment, rules, regulation, and funding and resources, that all are the part of local or national policy as well as international cooperation that we have discussed in the last slide also. So these are the terms and conditions that one should have in mind while preparing any any kind of policy regarding disaster management. Okay. So here I am requesting everyone to note down their numbers if they do not have. I write it till now. So please note down. Please do not duplicate. If you have once noted down, then don't write it again. Local action, that is about community preparedness. Local community play a vital role in a disaster management. They can establish community emergency response teams, conduct drills, develop local evacuation and communication plan. One more thing over here, apart from this, the students joining these lectures, please join with your name. Okay. Don't use your phones as your name to join the particular meeting. Use your names to join the meeting. Because if sometimes your enrollment number goes wrong, then how I can come across your name if you are not having your original name in a meeting? Early warning systems. So these communities can establish local early warning systems that provide timely alerts to residents in the event impending disasters such as floods, tsunamis, or severe weather events. Search and rescue. The local responders, including firefighters, police, volunteers, often play a critical role in immediate search and rescue operations during and after disaster. Relief and recovery. Local action encompass providing immediate relief such as food, water, shelter, engaging in recovery efforts such as clearing debris, rebuilding infrastructures, restoring essential services. Education and training. Community education programs can inform residents about the disaster risks and preparedness measures. Local training sessions can equip individuals with basic disaster response skills. So now I'm keeping it up to here. Any questions from your side? And requesting all to note down their numbers if they did not write it down till this time. And also requesting you all to pass on the message to your friends about the exam. Those who have not appeared, I have already uttered their name. I am again giving you the names. If you know anyone of them personally, then please do inform them. Adnan Garaya, Mihir Matia, Mustafa Aziz Vakharia, Malay Vachani, Fardin Sidi, and Viram Mundhawa. If you know anyone, please personally contact them and tell them about to complete the exam. Okay, so thank you all for being here and your patient listening. We'll meet on Thursday for the next lecture in an offline mode. So thank you all again. Here I am ending my session. Thank you all.